The marble floor of the Manhattan private bank gleamed like a mirror, reflecting the quiet power of the people who walked across it, men in tailored suits, women dripping with old money grace. No one noticed the small boy standing near the velvet rope, clutching a navy blue card with his name embossed in silver. 8-year-old Liam Wright Sterling looked far too innocent for a place like this, yet his eyes carried a calm maturity, the kind only children with complicated lives seem to have. "I want to check my balance," he told the banker proudly, lifting the card as if it were treasure. The banker smiled politely until his eyes froze on the screen. His gaze darted from the monitor to the boy, then back again, confusion widening into shock. Liam didn't understand any of it. To him, numbers were just numbers, but the banker knew better. The balance showing belonged to a trust fund that only the wealthiest families in America could afford to establish. Just a few steps away, a man in a charcoal suit was reviewing documents on his phone. Caleb Sterling, the billionaire, synonymous with Wall Street brilliance and cold ambition. He didn't look up until he heard the banker quietly repeating the boy's full name. Liam Sterling Wright. The sound of his own surname, one he guarded with an iron fist, made Caleb's head snap up. His eyes landed on the child, and his breath caught in his throat. The boy's features, the sharp jawline, those dark, earnest eyes, they struck him like a ghost from a past he had buried. No, impossible. Caleb stepped closer, trying to appear casual, but every cell in his body trembled. The banker, still rattled, asked gently. Liam nodded toward the glass doors just as they opened. A woman walked in, elegant, composed, wrapped in quiet power. Olivia Wright. The woman Caleb once loved. The woman he paid to disappear. The woman he believed had erased their unborn child. She stopped when she saw him. Her lips tightened, not with fear, but with something far colder. And in that electric second, every lie Caleb ever told threatened to come undone. Because Olivia hadn't come here by accident, she had come to end something he never knew was still alive. Before she became Olivia Wright, the elegant woman who could silence a room just by walking into it, she had been Olivia Hayes, a girl who once believed love could change a man. Years earlier, she had trusted a young Caleb Sterling, back when he was brilliant but broke, charming but dangerous, the type of man who promised the world, yet ran from anything real. She was 20 when she found out she was pregnant. He was 21 when he offered her an envelope of cash and a single sentence that shattered her. Take care of it. But Olivia didn't take care of it. She took care of him, Liam, the life she knew she had to protect, even if it meant protecting him from his own father. She walked out of that clinic, clutching her stomach, knowing she no longer had anyone to rely on except herself. And for 8 long years, she survived. 2 jobs, sleepless nights, fear as constant as her heartbeat. Yet she never once regretted choosing her son over a man who couldn't choose her. Her life changed the night she saved Edward Wright. She was working a late shift at a small New Jersey restaurant when a quiet, distinguished man at table 5 collapsed from cardiac arrest. While others froze, Olivia leaped forward, performing CPR until paramedics arrived. Edward, one of America's quiet billionaires, owner of Wright Industries, never forgot her bravery. What began as gratitude grew into companionship, then marriage. He offered her a home, safety, and a future for Liam. And for the first time in her life, Olivia believed stability might be possible. To the world, she was now a woman of grace and poise, living in a penthouse that overlooked the Manhattan skyline. But inside, she carried scars no diamonds could hide. She knew wealth could build walls, not heal wounds. She knew Edward was kind, but distant, more fatherly than romantic. But he loved Liam unconditionally. And that was enough. Yet nothing could prepare her for seeing Caleb again. The man she buried in her past now stood in the same bank as her son. When she walked toward Liam and saw Caleb staring at him, really staring, As if seeing a reflection he never expected, she felt an old ache slam back into her chest. Memories rose like smoke. The clinic's antiseptic smell, the rain-soaked sidewalk, the envelope of money that felt heavier than stone. She had rehearsed this moment for years, in nightmares she never admitted aloud. But she never expected it to happen on a quiet afternoon, with Liam holding a trust fund card in his small hand. She never expected Caleb to look frightened. Olivia straightened her shoulders. She knew who she was now. Not a girl begging for love, not a single mother fighting to breathe. She was a woman with power, financial, emotional, and moral. She had a husband who backed her, a son who adored her, and a truth that could destroy Caleb's carefully curated empire. But she also knew that revealing the truth wasn't just revenge, it was justice. It was the closure she had been denied for nearly a decade. As she reached Liam, she gently placed a hand on his shoulder. Liam smiled up at her, unaware of the storm forming around them. Caleb stepped forward, his voice unsteady, almost pleading. "Olivia." "Is he?" Her eyes didn't blink. Her expression didn't soften. "You don't get to ask that." People turned. The banker froze. Even Liam sensed something shift in the air. Caleb swallowed hard, panic rising in his eyes. Because Olivia looked like a woman who didn't come here to reunite. She came to finish something, and Caleb had no idea how much she had prepared for this exact moment. The bank was only the surface of the world. Olivia now occupied a world she never expected to step into, let alone command. Manhattan had once been a distant dream, a skyline she admired from a bus window during overnight shifts. Now it was her backyard, the place where she grocery shopped, where Liam played in private parks, where she woke up each morning inside floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the East River. Her life with Edward Wright was built on quiet luxury. Not the loud, glittering kind flaunted by influencers, but the old money elegance of someone who didn't need to prove anything. Their penthouse on Park Avenue was filled with soft light, curated art, and rooms big enough to swallow her entire childhood apartment. Liam had his own study, his own playroom, his own piano teacher. Olivia never forgot what it felt like to count every dollar, so she made sure her son never grew up spoiled, only secure. Yet the house, no matter how beautiful, never fully felt like hers. Edward traveled constantly, spending weeks abroad handling Wright Industries' expansion. When he was home, he was gentle, polite, grateful for her presence, but never fully present. Sometimes Olivia felt like she lived inside a painting, serene, breathtaking, but silent. Still, she appreciated stability. Edward had given her a world where Liam could breathe freely, where hospital bills didn't threaten their future, where fear didn't control every decision. The trust fund he created for Liam was meant to ensure that no matter what happened to Edward, the boy would always be protected. That card Liam proudly held at the bank represented years of safety Olivia once only dreamed of. But stepping back into that bank after so many years, walking into its polished marble halls with the smell of leather chairs and cold air conditioning, it stirred something she didn't expect. Manhattan's wealth had a way of reminding people of their past, just as much as it showcased their present. And then seeing Caleb there, alive, powerful, untouchable, was like being struck by lightning she'd spent 8 years outrunning. Caleb Sterling belonged to a different category of wealth entirely. Flashier, ruthless, a self-made titan with an empire built from ambition and sacrifices nobody ever talked about. He owned skyscrapers, negotiated with senators, donated to galas, simply to appear in society pages. He was the kind of man who could ruin a person with a phone call. Once, Olivia thought he was her future. Now she realized he might be her unfinished war. As she left the bank lobby with Liam, she noticed the subtle changes around her security guards speaking into earpieces. 2 suited men moving quickly toward the elevators. Caleb Sterling's presence could shift the atmosphere of an entire building, and he was moving too, pushing through the crowd, ignoring his assistant's frantic whispers, trying to catch sight of her. Olivia's pulse tightened. This was not part of her life anymore, not part of the world she built. She wasn't that frightened college girl. She wasn't the pregnant student crying in an alley behind a clinic. She wasn't the woman who accepted silence as survival. She was Olivia Wright now. But the city had long memories, and so did fate. And she knew Manhattan wasn't done with her. As she stepped onto the sidewalk, Liam tugged her sleeve. "Mom," he whispered, "why did that man look at me like he knew me?" Olivia froze, because she knew the truth that would shatter everything Liam believed. And somewhere behind her, Caleb was already stepping out of the bank, determined to chase the answer she never wanted him to find. Caleb Sterling had built a life where nothing, not failure, not scandal, not even memory could touch him. At least, that was what he told himself as he rose from nothing to one of Manhattan's most feared financial figures. CEOs bowed to his strategies, investors chased his approval, and newspapers called him the man who turned ambition into gold. Every photograph showed him sharp, composed, and untouchable. But behind the polished suits and the billion-dollar smile was a truth he spent years burying. He had once been a young man who ran from responsibility so fast that he left a piece of himself behind. Seeing Liam cracked something in him. It was more than resemblance. It was recognition, deep, visceral, impossible to deny. He had seen those eyes before, in a mirror, in another lifetime before greed had carved hardness into him. Yet the part of Caleb that could have softened had long been sealed shut. After Olivia disappeared from his life, he convinced himself it was for the best. His future required focus, and she would have slowed him down. He told himself she was better off. He told himself the child, if it had existed, was gone, erased by the money he handed her outside that clinic. A transaction. Clean. Final. But standing in that bank lobby, hearing his surname spoken aloud next to a boy who carried his face, Caleb felt the ground shift beneath him, and he hated it. He hated how vulnerable it made him feel. His assistant, Rachel, hurried after him as he stepped out onto Park Avenue. "Mr. Sterling, you're late for your lunch with the board." "Cancel it," he snapped, his jaw tightening. "That's not possible, sir. They're waiting." Caleb didn't hear a word. His mind spiraled back to Olivia. How dare she return looking stronger, wealthier, untouchable? How dare she raise a child, his child, with another man's name, another man's wealth, another man's protection? Rage blended with fear, two emotions he despised. He entered his waiting Mercedes, the door closing like a vault, sealing secrets. But the moment he sat down, he replayed the image of Liam standing at the counter, small but confident, holding a card tied to a trust fund worth more than most estates. Whose money was that? Who had given Olivia the life he denied her? Who had stepped into the role that should have been his? The name hit him like a blow. Edward Wright, a rival, a billionaire with more influence among old money circles, a man with a spotless reputation Caleb could never match. Caleb's pride twisted into something darker. If Liam was really his son, then Edward Wright had been raising him, providing for him, protecting him, being the man Caleb couldn't or wouldn't be. No, that was unacceptable. Caleb Sterling had built an empire by taking control of every narrative, every weakness, every threat. He would not allow a woman from his past to undermine him, and he would not allow Edward Wright to claim even a fraction of what belonged to him. He pulled out his phone. "Find everything you can on Olivia Wright, and her husband. And the boy," he ordered coldly. "Yes, Mr. Sterling. All three?" "All three," he repeated, his voice lowering. "I want to know what she's planning." Because the way Olivia looked at him in that bank, calm, steady, fearless, told him one thing. This wasn't a coincidence. She had waited for this moment. She had returned for a reason. And Caleb Sterling was about to discover that the woman he once underestimated had become the only opponent capable of destroying him. The next morning, Manhattan woke up humming with its usual rhythm horns, rushing footsteps, the distant echo of ambition. But inside the Sterling Capital headquarters, Tension rippled through the air like a storm building behind glass. Caleb's assistant, Rachel, had barely slept. She'd seen the look in her boss's eyes, the brittle panic disguised as determination. Something had shaken him to his core, and men like Caleb did not allow themselves to be shaken. Meanwhile, Olivia stepped out of her chauffeured SUV outside the Metropolitan Arts Foundation, where a charity brunch was being held. Cameras flashed the moment she appeared, her emerald dress flowing behind her like confidence itself. Edward was overseas, handling a crisis in London, so she represented the right family alone, a role she had grown into, though she still felt like an outsider in these polished rooms. But today, her mind wasn't on polite conversations or champagne fountains. It was on the boy she left at home, the boy whose entire world could crumble with one unwanted truth. Inside the hall, chatter filled the air, donors, board members, politicians. Olivia kept her posture perfect, but her heart tightened when she overheard two women discussing Sterling Capital's latest expansion. Everywhere she turned, Caleb's name seemed to echo. She moved toward a quiet corner to breathe. But the moment she lifted her champagne flute, a sudden wave of murmurs rose across the room. The crowd parted, cameras turned, and then Caleb Sterling walked in, not with his typical command, but with a sharp, predatory urgency she recognized from years ago. His eyes scanned the crowd until they locked on hers. The room dimmed in her mind, background noise fading into a single pulse of dread. He approached her without hesitation. "Olivia," he said, voice low, controlled. "We need to talk." She didn't flinch. "There's nothing I have to say to you." "There was a child in that bank yesterday," he replied. "A boy, with my name. 25. Ek." People around them paused mid-conversation. Heads turned. Olivia felt heat rush to her cheeks, not embarrassment, but anger. Caleb knew exactly what he was doing, cornering her in public so she couldn't walk away. "You don't get to ask about my son," she said through clenched teeth. Caleb stepped closer, invading her space. "Is he mine?" Olivia's grip tightened around her glass. "He's not your anything." "Then tell me I'm wrong," Caleb challenged, voice rising just enough to draw attention. The whispering around them swelled alive, hungry, waiting for a scandal to explode. Donors watched. Board members watched. Cameras angled toward them like vultures. Olivia felt the trap closing. She could lie. She could deny. She could walk out. But Caleb had already made it public. He had dragged the question into a room full of the city's most influential people, and if she stayed silent, they would assume the truth anyway. Her breath shook as she lowered her glass. "You don't deserve an answer," she whispered. Caleb searched her face, fury and desperation bursting through the cracks of his perfect exterior. "Olivia, what did you do?" he demanded. She took a step back, her voice steady as steel. "What you forced me to do," she said. "I survived you." Gasps rippled through the room. Caleb's composure snapped. His mask fell away, revealing something raw, dangerous, unrestrained. And then, somewhere behind them, a reporter raised his phone, recording every second, because in the next moment, a truth none of them were ready for was about to detonate in front of the entire room. Olivia didn't wait for the reporters to swarm her. She slipped out of the hall, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floors as if each step were an attempt to outrun the years of pain she had locked behind her ribs. But the moment she reached the hallway, her breath faltered, her heartbeat thrashed inside her chest, memories breaking free like shattered glass. 8 years. 8 years she had built a life made of careful bricks, safety, stability, silence. And in less than 2 minutes, Caleb Sterling had smashed a hole straight through it. She stumbled into an empty side corridor, pressing her back against the wall, gripping her stomach the way she did the day she walked out of that clinic. The same nausea, the same trembling hands, the same fear of losing everything. Her vision blurred. She hadn't planned for a confrontation not like this, not with cameras, not with the whole city ready to dissect every expression on her face. She thought she had time. She thought she could choose when and how Caleb learned the truth. But now, the narrative was slipping out of her fingers, and in Manhattan, once a rumor began, it grew teeth and claws. Olivia felt her throat tighten. "Not again," she whispered to herself. "I can't. Not again." She slid down the wall, burying her face in her hands. The weight of the past pressed against her chest like a fist. She remembered the sound of Caleb's voice the night he walked away, the coldness, the finality. She remembered the humiliation of counting dollars for diapers, the terror of Liam's fever spikes, the endless fear of being nothing more than a girl Caleb paid to disappear. A soft buzz interrupted her spiral, her phone. A text from Edward's chief of staff. "Mrs. Wright, we've seen footage from the brunch. Mr. Wright is requesting a call immediately." Her stomach dropped. Edward was thousands of miles away, but she could already picture his expression, tense, controlled, calculating. He would not be angry about her past. He was not that kind of man. But he would be angry about exposure, about scandal, about the trust fund he crafted being dragged into the spotlight. And underneath all that, she sensed something worse. Fear. Fear of what Caleb might claim. Fear of losing the narrative. Fear of losing Liam. Olivia forced herself to stand. Her legs wobbled. She walked toward a quiet exit door, pushing it open into a side courtyard. The cold air slapped against her skin, shocking her back into the present. She sucked in a shaky breath. She needed clarity. She needed strength. She needed to protect her son. A slight sound made her freeze. Footsteps. She turned sharply and her heart sank. Caleb Sterling stepped out from behind a column like a shadow she could never outrun. His tie was loosened, his hair slightly disheveled. The polished mask he wore in boardrooms was gone. In its place stood a man who looked terrified of something he couldn't control. "Olivia," he said softly, almost pleading. "Talk to me, please." She backed away as if he were a flame. "Stay away from me." He shook his head. "I can't. Not now. Not after seeing him. Not after hearing his name." "Olivia, tell me the truth." His voice cracked, not with anger, not with arrogance, with desperation. The same desperation she once begged him to feel. A single tear slipped down her cheek, not for him, but for the girl she once was. "You lost any right to the truth the day you walked away," she said. Caleb swallowed hard, the reality striking him. "Then I'll find it myself." Olivia froze, because the way he said it, cold, determined, dangerous, told her one thing. Caleb Sterling was about to dig into the past she vowed to keep buried, and she had no idea which secret he would find first. Caleb didn't wait. The moment Olivia walked away from him in that courtyard, he felt something inside him snap, a sharp, possessive instinct he thought he had buried beneath years of power and success. He climbed back into his Mercedes, slammed the door, and ordered the driver to go. "Where to, sir?" "Home," Caleb said, "and get Rachel on the line." By the time he reached his penthouse, overlooking a tense Manhattan skyline, his mind was already racing. He replayed every detail from the bank, the boy's face, the banker's shock, Olivia's cold composure, a boy that looked like him, a surname that shouldn't exist, a past he believed erased. Rachel appeared with a file the moment he stepped inside. "You asked me to run a background check on Olivia Wright. I found something you might want to sit down for." Caleb didn't sit. Rachel cleared her throat. "Sir." Olivia didn't meet her husband through charity work like the media reported. She saved his life. Caleb blinked. Saved him? Yes. CPR. A medical emergency. And after that, Edward Wright seemed to attach to her. Very quickly. Their marriage happened barely 9 months later. Caleb felt his temples pulse. "Are you implying something?" "I'm implying," Rachel said carefully, "that Olivia didn't just survive without you. She was chosen, elevated, protected, by someone with far more power than even you had back then." The words stung more than he expected. "Also," Rachel hesitated. Edward created a very unusual trust fund for Liam. It's enormous and tightly controlled. But here's the part you need to see. She handed him another document, a sealed medical report from years ago. Caleb tore it open, eyes scanning the words. Then he froze. It wasn't about Liam. It was about Olivia, a pregnancy complication that nearly killed her, a hospital stay she paid for alone, a note stating the father was unknown because she refused to name him. Caleb felt the room tilt. "She almost died," he whispered. "She almost died and she never told me." Rachel looked down. "She had no one to tell, sir." You made sure of that." The words hit like a blade. For the first time in years, guilt, real, raw, unfiltered, punched straight through the armor he built. But something else clawed up behind it. Fear. Because if Olivia almost died, then someone else knew. Someone must have helped her. And that someone was Edward Wright, a man Caleb had underestimated, a man who had stepped into the space he left empty, a man who now raised the child Caleb never allowed to be born in peace. Caleb gripped the edge of his marble countertop until his knuckles whitened. "Find out why Edward took them in," he ordered quietly. "No one does that for free." Rachel swallowed. "There's more." "How much more?" She handed him a final photograph, grainy, old, taken outside the clinic Caleb remembered all too well. It showed Olivia standing under a streetlight, crying, holding her stomach, and beside her, someone offering her a handkerchief. A man. A tall, composed, familiar silhouette. Edward Wright. Caleb's breath stopped. Edward had been there. The night he told Olivia to end the pregnancy. Edward had seen everything. The man who saved her wasn't a stranger. He was a witness. And maybe, just maybe, a rival long before Caleb even knew the game had begun. Caleb's pulse hammered. "He knew," he whispered. "He knew she was carrying my child." Rachel nodded slowly. "Sir, I think Edward Wright has been one step ahead of you for 8 years. Where?" Caleb's face hardened into something dangerous, something that could burn a city down. Because if Edward Wright had known the truth all along, then everything Olivia built, her marriage, her safety, her future, was about to shake under the weight of a secret even she didn't know existed. For the rest of the day, Olivia moved through her penthouse like a ghost wrapped in silk. Liam played with his model trains in the living room, humming softly, blissfully unaware of the war erupting around him. The windows overlooked the glittering Manhattan skyline, the same skyline that once felt like a promise. Today, it felt like a cage. She paced the master bedroom, her fingers trembling as she dialed Edward's number, straight to voicemail. She tried again. Still nothing. Her pulse hammered harder with each unanswered call. She wasn't angry at him yet. What she felt was fear. Fear that he had seen the footage. Fear that he now knew how close her past was to clawing its way into her present. Fear that this time she would lose the safety she fought so hard to obtain. When she finally collapsed onto the edge of the bed, her eyes landed on a framed photograph of Liam, one taken the day Edward officially adopted him as his legal heir. Liam, smiling with the innocence only a loved child could possess. Edward, standing behind him with a steady, protective hand on his shoulder. Olivia's breath steadied. She had survived worse than scandal, worse than questions, worse than men who believed they could define her life. She rose and walked to the mirror, staring at her reflection. Her eyes were still red, her lipstick faded, her posture curved inward like she was still the girl Caleb abandoned. No more. She opened her walk-in closet, stepping into the soft glow of recessed lights. This closet wasn't about vanity, it was armor. She slid her hand across the fabrics until she chose a tailored black blazer, a crisp cream blouse, and trousers that fit like confidence itself. She pinned her hair up, applied new lipstick, and put on a pair of subtle diamond earrings. Edward once told her, made her look unbreakable. She studied herself again, not the girl from the clinic, Not the waitress from New Jersey. Not the scared young mother. She was Olivia Wright, mother, survivor, and now, a woman who would no longer hide from the truth. Her phone buzzed. A private number. She hesitated, then answered. Olivia. Edward's tired voice came through, shaky, uncharacteristically vulnerable. I saw the video. Her chest tightened. Edward, I can explain. No, he said softly. I've always known you were running from something. I never demanded answers because I thought time would heal you. But today I realized time doesn't heal secrets. It buries them alive. Kuntanu. She bit her lip. Are you angry? I'm concerned, Edward said. Not for myself. For you. For Liam. And for what Caleb will do next. Men like him don't seek truth. They seek control. He paused. We need to meet. Tonight. Her pulse quickened. Where? The Midtown Tower. My private office. It's secure, she agreed. But before she hung up, Edward added, And Olivia, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said years ago. Her breath caught. What is it? Edward hesitated. Not over the phone. Come quickly. The call ended. Olivia stared at her reflection once more. This wasn't fear anymore. This was resolve. She grabbed her coat and kissed Liam's forehead. I'll be back soon, sweetheart. Be good for Maria. He looked up with wide, trusting eyes. Okay, Mum. She stepped into the elevator, her heels echoing like the opening notes of a battle she could no longer avoid. The doors closed, and on the other side of the city, in a penthouse lit by the cold glow of the skyline, Caleb Sterling prepared to make a move he could never take back. Because the next time their paths crossed, one of them would lose everything, and Olivia was determined it wouldn't be her. The elevator shot Olivia upward through the gleaming heart of Midtown, its glass walls reflecting the city's restless lights. Her pulse thudded with each passing floor. She had faced many battles in her life, but never two billionaires at once. And tonight, the truth would no longer be a distant shadow. It would stand in front of her, demanding to be faced. The elevator doors opened into Edward Wright's private office, an entire floor suspended in glass, floating above Manhattan like a silent kingdom. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow from the skyline. Edward stood near the window, his suit jacket draped over a leather chair, the weight of something heavy etched into his posture. Olivia, he said quietly without turning around. Thank you for coming. She stepped inside. You said there was something I needed to know. He nodded once, still facing the city. Do you remember the night we met? She swallowed. Of course. You collapsed. Yes, he said. But that's not the real beginning. Slowly, he turned. I saw you before that night. Olivia stiffened. Edward walked toward his desk and picked up a small, worn object, a folded photograph. He handed it to her with trembling fingers. Her breath left her body. It was the same photograph Caleb had seen in his penthouse of her, standing in the rain outside the clinic, tears streaking her cheeks, clutching her stomach. But this copy was clean, clear, and on the back was a date she recognized too well. The night Caleb abandoned her. Why do you have this? She whispered. Edward's voice cracked. Because I was there. Olivia stared at him, horror creeping up her spine. I saw you walk out, he confessed. I saw that you were alone. I didn't know your name, just that you were suffering. I followed you to make sure you were safe. But you disappeared into the city before I could reach you. Her throat tightened. Edward, why didn't you ever tell me? Because, he said, pain flickering across his face. It would have revealed something else. He took a deep breath. I knew the father was Caleb Sterling. The room tilted. Olivia shook her head. No. How? How could you have known? Edward stepped closer, his voice heavy with the truth he had carried for 8 years. Caleb was at the same clinic that night. His name was on the sign-in sheet. I recognized him instantly. I knew he was abandoning someone. I knew he was paying for a secret to disappear. He swallowed hard. And I knew. You didn't go through with it. Olivia's knees weakened. She gripped the desk to steady herself. Edward reached out cautiously, not as a husband possessing her, but as a man terrified of losing her. Olivia, I kept it from you because I didn't want to reopen your wounds. And I kept it from Caleb because I knew he would take Liam from you the second he learned the truth. If you... Her breathing grew ragged. So you hid it. All these years. Yes, he said. To protect you both. She stepped back, tears burning her eyes, not of betrayal, but of exhaustion. Edward, Liam deserves the truth. And I deserve more than secrets, he nodded slowly. I know, and that's why I called you here. He pressed a button on his desk. The glass door opened. Caleb Sterling walked in. Olivia's blood turned to ice. Edward's voice lowered into something Olivia had never heard before, a quiet, deadly resolve. It's time, he said, for the three of us to finish what began 8 years ago. Caleb's eyes locked on Olivia, fierce and shaken, and before she could speak, he dropped a bombshell of his own. Olivia, I know what really happened the night you almost died. The room tightened around Olivia like a closing fist. Edward stood behind his desk, steady but pale. Caleb stood in the doorway, chest rising sharply, his mask of control cracked in ways she had never seen. The skyline glowed behind them, cold and indifferent, as if New York itself were listening. Olivia's voice was barely a whisper. What are you talking about, Caleb? He stepped forward, eyes locked on hers. The night you walked out of that clinic, you didn't just leave because of me. You were hemorrhaging. Her breath caught. How do you know that? Because, Caleb said, jaw tense. I went back. Silence punched through the room. Edward's expression hardened instantly. You, what? Caleb nodded, eyes never leaving Olivia. I panicked. After you left, something felt wrong. I went back inside, asked if you were still there. They told me you'd collapsed in the hallway, that you were taken to a hospital. Old friends. Then has really, the dolled. Olivia trembled, memories rushing back in blurry, painful fragments, the bright hospital lights, the metallic smell, the nurse pressing her hand, the ache that felt like losing life itself. I stayed, Caleb continued quietly. At the hospital, in the lobby. I waited for hours. Edward let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. You expect us to believe that? You couldn't even stay long enough to let her speak that night. Caleb didn't look at him. Believe me or don't, but I stayed. Until someone else went up to see her. Olivia felt her heartbeat trip. Who? Caleb's eyes hardened, flicking to Edward. Him. Edward stiffened. Yes, Caleb said. Edward Wright. He went upstairs before I could. Security stopped me. Told me she didn't want visitors. I thought... His voice broke. I thought you didn't want me. Olivia stared, breath shaking. No, I never said that. Caleb swallowed. Someone did. The tension snapped like glass. Edward's jaw clenched. You think I told the hospital to block you? I think, Caleb said slowly, you wanted me gone long before you ever married her. Edward exhaled, a long, weighted sound. I protected her. She was dying, and you were the reason. Olivia felt the world tilt. Her pulse throbbed in her ears. Edward, did you really stop him from seeing me? Edward looked at her not with arrogance, but with sorrow. You were unconscious. You were alone. And he was the one who put you there. I wasn't going to let him near you. It was an answer wrapped in love and control, in protection and trespass. Olivia sank into the nearest chair, feeling the ground shifting beneath her. Caleb stepped closer, voice soft. Olivia, I didn't know. I swear to you. I thought you wanted nothing to do with me. I told myself you'd made your choice. I told myself the child was gone. I hated it. But I accepted it. His eyes glimmered, breaking open with a pain, 8 years old. If I had known you lived. If I had known he lived. Don't, Edward interrupted sharply. You lost that right. Caleb's temper flared. You took that right. You decided her future without her. Olivia raised a trembling hand. Stop, both of you. They fell silent. Her voice cracked. You both built stories about me without ever asking me what I wanted. Caleb's shoulders lowered. Edward looked away. For the first time, both men seemed stripped of power. Olivia stood, resolve hardening like steel along her spine. This ends now. No more secrets. No more decisions made for me. Caleb took a step closer. Then I need to know one thing. One truth. Olivia, she swallowed. What? His voice dropped to a whisper that trembled with hope and devastation. Is Liam my son? Olivia froze. The air inside the glass-walled office thickened until she could barely breathe. Caleb's question didn't just pierce the room, it cracked open 8 years of silence, grief, survival, and choices she never wanted to relive. Edward took a sharp step forward. This is not the time. This is exactly the time, Caleb snapped. I've waited 8 years without knowing I had a son. I'm done waiting. Olivia squeezed her eyes shut. She had always known this moment would come, but she never imagined it would unfold like this, with her past and present standing inches apart, locked in a war for control of a truth that belonged only to her and her child. When she opened her eyes, her voice was quiet but steady. Yes, she whispered. Liam is your son. Caleb stumbled back a half step, as if she had physically struck him. His breath escaped in a raw, broken sound he couldn't contain. For a man built from steel and calculation, the vulnerability rippling across his face was almost heartbreaking. Edward's jaw tightened. And now what? You think this revelation gives you power? Liam has a family. He has a home. He has protection. He doesn't need you storming into his life because your guilt woke up one morning. Caleb turned on him. He needs the truth. Children always need the truth. Olivia shook her head. No, children need stability, and love, and safety, not two men tearing each other apart. Caleb faced her again, softer now. Olivia, why didn't you tell me? Her throat tightened. Because you told me to erase him. Because you told me his existence was a problem. Because you made me choose between my dignity and motherhood, and I chose him. A tear slipped down Caleb's cheek before he could stop it. He looked away, ashamed. I was young, stupid, terrified of losing everything. You lost us, Olivia replied. That was the real cost. End quote. Edward stepped beside her, his voice controlled but trembling. Olivia, whatever happens next, I need you to understand, I never wanted to replace Caleb. I only wanted to protect you. Caleb scoffed. Protect her? Or control the narrative before I ever had the chance to? You married her 9 months after meeting her and made Liam the heir to your empire. That's not protection, Edward. That's strategy. Edward's eyes flashed with anger. You abandoned them. I built them a life. Israi, and you built it on my child. Caleb shot back. Olivia slammed her hand onto the desk, the sound echoing through the office. Enough. Both men went silent. This isn't about you, she said, her voice breaking but fierce. This is about Liam, his future, his heart, his safety, and I will not let either of you tear him apart, because your egos can't fit in the same room. Caleb stepped closer, softer. Then let me do the one thing I should have done 8 years ago. Let me be his father. No. Edward's expression stiffened, a warning simmering beneath the calm. Olivia, think very carefully. The moment Caleb enters Liam's life, the media will dig through everything. You, him, Liam. There will be no peace. Olivia felt the world tilt. For 8 years she had protected Liam with everything she had, but she had also kept him from a truth that belonged to him. She felt her knees weakening. The weight of motherhood, betrayal, survival, it all pressed down on her at once. Caleb reached out gently. "Olivia, please." Her chest tightened. The room spun. And then her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and the blood drained from her face. It was Liam's school. The caller ID flashed urgent. Her heart dropped into her stomach. She answered with a shaking hand. "Hello?" A panicked voice filled her ear. "Mrs. Wright, Liam has collapsed." The phone slipped from her fingers, and in the same instant, both billionaires lunged forward, but Olivia was already running. The hospital lights were too bright, too white, too cold, like they were designed to expose every fear a parent never wanted to face. Olivia sprinted through the revolving doors, her breath ragged, her heels clattering against the polished floor until one snapped clean off. She didn't stop. She ran barefoot down the hallway, ignoring the stairs, ignoring the pain slicing through her lungs. "Where is he?" she gasped to the nurse behind the counter. The nurse recognized her instantly. Everyone in Manhattan did. But titles, wealth, status meant nothing when a child collapsed. "He's in room 3B, the nurse said gently. "We're running tests on his heart." Olivia stumbled toward the room, each step heavier than the last. She pushed open the door and saw Liam lying on the hospital bed, pale, eyelids fluttering, wires circling him like fragile vines. A heart monitor beeped, slow and uneven. Her world cracked open. "Mom," Liam whispered faintly when he saw her. His voice trembled. "I got dizzy. My chest hurt." She cradled his hand between both of hers and kissed his forehead. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here." A doctor entered, young but calm. "Mrs. Wright, your son's been experiencing arrhythmia. It's likely stress-induced, but given his medical history as an infant, we need to run deeper tests." Medical history. The words twisted Olivia's stomach. She knew what they meant. Liam had nearly died as a newborn. Another truth Caleb never knew. Another chapter she survived alone. Before she could ask more, footsteps thundered down the hallway. Caleb and Edward appeared at the doorway, two powerful men who looked completely powerless now. Edward's face was sheet-white. Caleb's breath shook like he'd been sprinting. The doctor glanced between them, surprised. "Immediate family only. Nofa. They're both his family," Olivia managed, voice cracking. Caleb froze. Edward inhaled sharply, but neither argued. The doctor continued. "Your son may require a minor procedure to monitor the electrical pathways in his heart. If anything abnormal is detected, surgery could be necessary." Olivia's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, God. No." Edward stepped forward, laying a steadying hand on her shoulder. "He's strong, Olivia. He'll get through this." 24. Caleb stood rigid, gripping the doorframe until his knuckles blanched. "This is my fault." Olivia whipped around. Don't make this about you now." But Caleb shook his head. "No, Olivia. I mean it. I should have been there. Not just today. All these years." His voice cracked open, raw and trembling. "If something happens to him, I won't forgive myself." The honesty in his voice disarmed her, not enough to trust him, but enough to wound her. A nurse entered. "We need to prep Liam now." With Olivia leaned down, brushing Liam's hair back as he blinked tiredly. "Mom," he whispered. "Will I be okay?" She held his face in her shaking hands. "Yes, baby. You will. I promise." The nurse guided her aside as they began prepping the bed. Caleb took one step forward, then stopped, unsure. Edward murmured, "Let her be with him." But Liam raised his small voice. "Wait." Everyone turned. He looked at Caleb. "Are you my dad?" The air stopped. Caleb's eyes really filled for the first time in his adult life. I think I am, buddy." Liam nodded, as if something inside him had always known. "Can you stay, both of you?" he asked softly. Olivia's breath trembled. For a moment, past and present collided in a way she couldn't stop. The nurse motioned. "We need to go now." As they wheeled Liam toward the procedure room, Olivia turned to the two men who shaped her life, the one who broke her and the one who saved her. "Listen carefully," she whispered. "If either of you make this harder for him, I will burn both your empires to the ground." But neither man challenged her, because at that moment, they understood something they never had before. Only one person truly held the power in this war, and she was walking straight into the operating room with her son. The hours following Liam's procedure were a strange kind of quiet, the kind that fills a hospital wing after panic has burned itself out, but before answers return. Olivia sat in the dimly lit waiting room, her elbows on her knees, face buried in her hands. She had cried until there were no tears left, only the hollow ache of a mother waiting for fate to decide if her world would stay whole. Edward paced near the window, hands clasped tightly behind his back. Caleb stood at the far end of the room, staring at a vending machine without seeing anything. They were two titans of industry, men used to controlling markets, outmaneuvering rivals, calculating risks. But now, stripped of power, they waited like frightened fathers. A doctor finally entered, exhaustion softening his features. "The procedure went well. Liam is stable. We'll keep him overnight for monitoring." Olivia closed her eyes and exhaled a tremor of relief. She stood so quickly the chair scraped the floor. "Can I see him?" "Only one parent for now," the doctor said. Immediately, Edward stepped forward. "Olivia should go." Caleb's jaw clenched, but he didn't speak. He looked down, swallowing his frustration. Olivia touched Edward's arm gently. "Thank you." When she walked down the hallway, her heels silent against the floor, Edward and Caleb faced each other, two storms, circling a shared center. Edward spoke first. "She doesn't need more chaos." Caleb's eyes burned. "I'm his father. You weren't for 8 years. Because you blocked me." Edward's expression hardened. "Because you would have destroyed her." Caleb laughed bitterly. "And what are you doing now? Hiding behind charity and trust funds?" Edward stepped closer, voice steady but icy. "I built her a world where she could finally breathe." "And you built it on a lie," Caleb fired back. "You married a woman without giving her the whole truth." Edward's jaw tightened. "She didn't need the truth. She needed safety." Caleb shook his head. "She needed choice, something neither of us gave her." For a moment, the two men stood in silence, acknowledging, perhaps for the first time, that both had failed her in different ways. But the truce didn't last. A lawyer entered the waiting room, holding a stack of documents. He approached Edward first. "Mr. Right, we've been monitoring the media. There's heavy speculation about Liam's paternity. Sterling Capital is trending on every platform. We need to issue a statement urgently." Edward didn't blink. "No statement, Olivia decides." The lawyer hesitated. "Sir, if the truth comes out uncontrolled, it could compromise Liam's trust structure. The board will pressure us to." "Olivia decides," Edward repeated, sharper now. The lawyer nodded and left, but not before glancing nervously at Caleb, recognizing him as the catalyst of every unfolding disaster. Then another lawyer walked in, this one approaching Caleb. "Mr. Sterling, I've prepared preliminary paperwork. If Liam is confirmed as your biological son, you can file for paternity rights immediately." Caleb didn't take the papers. His voice was low. "Not now." "Sir, strategically." "Not now," Caleb snapped. "My son is lying in a hospital bed. This isn't a boardroom negotiation." The lawyer stepped back, startled. Edward watched him, surprised by the softness beneath Caleb's volatility. "You really care for him," Edward said quietly. Caleb didn't deny it. "He's mine." Edward exhaled slowly. "What happens now? It has to be Olivia's choice." Caleb's eyes flicked with something complicated: regret, longing, determination. "I know." Ikama. Across the hall, Olivia sat beside Liam's bed, stroking his hair as machines beeped steadily around them. She whispered promises. She prayed she could keep promises of peace, of truth, of a future where no man would ever decide her life again. But as she leaned down to kiss his forehead, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Miss Wright, this is Detective Harris. We need to speak immediately. It's about your husband." Olivia's blood ran cold, because the next secret to surface wouldn't be about Caleb, but about Edward. Olivia stepped into the quiet hospital corridor, the detective's number still glowing on her phone screen. Her pulse raced, not with fear, but with a cold, growing understanding that the past wasn't the only threat. The present, the life she built, the man she trusted, something was unraveling beneath it all. She dialed back. A deep voice answered immediately. "Mrs. Wright? This is Detective Harris. Are you somewhere private?" "No," she whispered, glancing through the window where Liam slept peacefully. "But I can be." She slipped down the hallway, stopping near a dim alcove beside a vending machine. "What is this about, Detective?" "It concerns your husband, Edward Wright. We need to ask a few questions regarding a financial investigation." Olivia frowned. "Financial? Edward's business is audited constantly. There has to be a mistake. That's what we're hoping to determine. But his company, Wright Industries, has been linked to a shell corporation involved in an illegal acquisition 8 years ago. The same month he met you." Her blood chilled. 8 years ago," she repeated. "Are you suggesting he—" "We're not accusing him," the detective cut in gently. "We're asking if you know anything about that period." Olivia felt the walls tilt. "No, I don't." She hung up, numb. 8 years ago. The clinic, the pregnancy, her collapse, Edward finding her. It was the darkest moment of her life. And somehow, Edward's greatest rise had happened at the same time. She closed her eyes, pressing her hand to the wall. Had she married another man with secrets? Had she walked into a different kind of trap before she could steady herself? Footsteps echoed behind her. Edward stood at the end of the corridor. "Olivia," he said softly, "you've been gone a while. Is everything okay?" Her voice came out thin. "I got a call. From a detective." End quote. Edward's expression didn't shift, but his fingers twitched. "That's nothing you need to worry about," he said gently. She stepped back. "Don't lie to me," he exhaled. "Olivia, the business world is ruthless. My competitors are always looking for leverage. They dig up whatever they can, hoping something sticks. It's standard. It's noise." But Olivia wasn't the same woman she'd been 8 years ago. She heard the edge in his voice. The deflection. The calm, too calm to be real. "What happened 8 years ago?" she asked. Edward walked toward her slowly. "I saved you." "You were at the clinic," she whispered. "Why?" He stopped, not shocked, not confused, but cornered. "I was making a deal," he admitted quietly, "negotiating with someone I shouldn't have trusted. I walked out of that meeting and saw you crying alone in the rain, and something in me shifted. I felt pulled to you. That. De novos." Olivia's heart cracked, not from betrayal, but from the realization that her trauma had been the beginning of his attachment. He continued, "Everything I built afterward, everything I gave you and Liam, it was to correct one moment in my life where I felt powerless." "Edward," she whispered, "what did you do?" He didn't answer, because behind them, another voice spoke. "Caleb, standing in the shadows." "He bought the clinic," Caleb said. "That's what the detective didn't tell you yet." "Oh, times infactidos." Olivia gasped. "What?" Edward closed his eyes, shoulders sagging. Caleb stepped forward, eyes fixed on Edward, like a judge delivering a sentence. "He bought the clinic the same week you collapsed, shut it down, buried every record, every signature, every trace of you." Olivia's breath shattered. "Edward, tell me." "He's lying." Edward looked at her eyes, full of sorrow, not denial. "I did it to protect you," he whispered. "To protect Liam. To erase the pain you endured." 10. Olivia staggered back, tears burning hot. "You didn't erase the pain. You erased the truth. She turned away from both men, one who abandoned her and one who saved her too deeply. Caleb's voice cut through the tension. Olivia, there's more, and you need to hear it now. She spun, breath trembling. Because the man you married didn't just hide your past, he reshaped it. For the first time since she arrived at the hospital, Olivia felt her legs might give out beneath her. A part of her still clung to the belief that Edward had saved her life, not manipulated it. And yet every new revelation felt like another fault line cracking through the ground beneath her. Caleb stepped closer, his voice low but urgent. Olivia, he didn't just erase the clinic records. He erased the medical report that proved you nearly died. Edward's gaze darkened. You have no idea what you're talking about. Caleb ignored him, eyes locked on Olivia. That report would have held me accountable. It would have forced me to face what you went through. And he took that from both of us. Olivia's breath hitched. Why? Why would you do that? Edward. Edward sighed a deep, resigned sound, as though he had been preparing for this moment for years. Because the truth would have driven you back to him. That wasn't your decision, she whispered, voice trembling. You don't get to rewrite the parts of my life you don't like. Is dull. Edward swallowed, pained. I loved you. I still do. I saw a woman drowning, and all I wanted was to give you air, Caleb scoffed. You didn't give her air. You put her in a glass box. Edward's voice sharpened. And you? You abandoned her. You gave her money to erase your child. Don't act like you're the savior here. Caleb flinched. The truth of his past failure clung to him like smoke. Olivia stepped back, unable to breathe under the weight of their accusations. Both of you need to stop. This isn't about either of you. Her voice shook, but it carried an authority that silenced them instantly. Before she could say more, the hospital lights flickered. A loudspeaker crackled overhead. Attention. Code Orange. Security breach in the pediatric wing. All non-essential personnel remain where you are. Olivia's heart jumped. Liam. She ran toward his room, both men immediately following. The hallway was chaos, nurses rushing, security guards speaking into radios, worried parents stepping out of rooms. When Olivia reached Liam's door, a guard blocked her path. Ma'am, I can't let anyone in. That's my son, she snapped, shoving past him. She burst into the room only to freeze. Liam wasn't alone. A woman stood at his bedside, well-dressed, calm, familiar. Rachel, Caleb's assistant. Olivia's stomach hollowed out. What are you doing here? Rachel turned slowly, her expression unreadable. Checking on him, Caleb pushed forward. Rachel? I didn't send you. I know, she replied coolly. Edward narrowed his eyes. Then why are you here? Rachel looked at Liam, then back at Olivia. Because someone needs to tell you the truth neither of these men has the courage to say. Olivia stiffened. What truth? Rachel stepped toward her, lowering her voice. Liam's medical condition. It isn't random. I have to do. The room froze. Caleb's face paled. Edward's jaw clenched. Olivia's voice cracked. What do you mean? Rachel glanced at the monitors, then at the boy sleeping peacefully. His heart condition is genetic. Olivia's pulse raced. Genetic from who? Rachel hesitated, then said quietly, from his biological father. Caleb's breath stopped, but Rachel wasn't looking at him. She was looking at Edward. Olivia's world tilted violently. No, that's not possible. Edward isn't his father. Izo. Rachel's expression softened, almost sympathetic. Olivia, Edward knew you were pregnant long before he ever approached you. He knew Caleb abandoned you, and he knew the clinic results. Caleb growled. Get to the point. Rachel exhaled. The genetic mutation Liam has doesn't come from Caleb's lineage. She paused, then delivered the blow. It comes from Edward's. The room exploded in silence. Olivia stumbled back as if struck. No. Tell me that's not true. Yes. Edward stepped forward, voice shaking. Olivia, listen. but she raised a hand, eyes blazing with betrayal and terror. "Don't you say another word." Liam's heart monitor beeped steadily, unaware of the war detonating around him. And then, a nurse rushed into the room. "Mrs. Wright, Liam's heart rhythm is destabilizing again. We need to take him back into surgery, immediately." Olivia gasped, torn between the medical emergency and the truth unraveling in front of her, because the next decision she made would change all of their lives forever. The hallway outside the surgical unit was chaos, machines beeping, nurses running, the sharp smell of antiseptic rising like cold smoke. But inside Olivia, everything was eerily silent. The world had tilted beneath her feet twice in one night, and she wasn't sure which revelation stole her breath more, that Liam's heart was failing, or that Edward's bloodline was tied to it. She couldn't allow herself to process either. Not now. Her son came first. Always her son. "Mrs. Wright, we need your consent," the surgeon said urgently, holding out a clipboard. "The arrhythmia is escalating. We need to operate immediately." Olivia grabbed the pen with trembling hands. "Do whatever it takes. Save him." As she signed, she felt both men behind her, Caleb tense and devastated, Edward pale and shaking, Rachel watching with a calm Olivia couldn't interpret. The surgeon signaled the team. "Prep the oar." They wheeled Liam past her, her baby, her world, small body swallowed by blankets, mask covering half his face. Olivia leaned down and kissed his forehead. "Mom's right here, sweetheart," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." His eyelashes fluttered weakly, and then he disappeared behind the double doors to the operating room. When they shut, the sound was final, echoing like a verdict. Olivia pressed a hand over her mouth to keep from collapsing. She slid down the wall, feeling her lungs compress with each sob she refused to let escape. Caleb approached slowly. "Olivia, I am so sorry." She didn't look at him. "Not now." He stepped back, guilt carving lines across his face. He wanted to comfort her, but he knew he had no right. Edward knelt beside her. "Olivia, please, listen." She flinched away. "I don't want your excuses." He swallowed hard. "I wasn't trying to deceive you. I didn't know the mutation would be relevant. I didn't know it would harm him." "You knew something," she whispered. Edward's expression twisted with anguish. "I did everything to keep you safe. And in doing that," she said bitterly, "you made choices that were never yours to make." The guilt in his eyes was unmistakable. Caleb crossed his arms tightly, voice low. "You should have told her the truth from the beginning." Edward shot him a glare. "And you should have stayed the night she almost died." The words sliced through Caleb. But he didn't defend himself, because it was true. Olivia stood abruptly. "Stop it, both of you. I don't care who failed me 8 years ago. What matters now is Liam." Silence thickened between them. Rachel stepped forward then, surprising them all. "Olivia, there's something else you need to know." "Wait." Olivia's knees nearly buckled. "No, not now." But Rachel didn't stop. "The genetic mutation, it's not a guarantee. It's triggered by environmental stress, extreme emotional strain." Olivia blinked, horrified. "You're saying?" "Yes," Rachel said softly. "The collapse, the arrhythmia. It may have been triggered by everything happening around him. The tension, the fear, the uncertainty." Olivia's heart cracked. "My baby is suffering because we brought chaos into his life." End quote. Caleb stepped forward, voice trembling. "Then I'll leave. If seeing me hurts him." "No," Olivia snapped. "Running away won't fix anything. That's how this mess began." Caleb's eyes glistened with remorse. Edward ran a hand down his face. "The best thing we can do is stand together for him." Olivia let out a shaky breath. "Then start proving it." Just then, the surgeon burst through the OR doors, face tense. "Mrs. Wright, we've encountered a complication. Veloe. Make so." Her heart slammed against her ribs. "What kind of complication?" The surgeon hesitated, glancing at Caleb and Edward. "We need one of the biological parents to sign authorization for an emergency cardiac intervention." Without hesitation, Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. A choice, a signature, a legal father. She turned to both men, Caleb hopeful, broken, desperate, Edward protective, terrified, full of secrets. Her voice trembled. "Which one of you is it?" The surgeon answered softly. "Only one of them has the genetic markers to approve this surgery. And we need the father now." For a moment, the world held its breath. Machines hummed behind the OR doors, lights flickered in the hallway, and Olivia felt as though she were standing on the edge of two lives, the one she fought to build, and the one fate had been quietly arranging behind her back. The surgeon cleared his throat. "We ran an emergency gene screen based on Liam's blood samples from earlier today. Only one man here carries the marker we need to authorize the cardiac intervention." Olivia swallowed hard. Who? The doctor turned, his expression steady. Edward Wright. Silence crashed around them. Caleb's face drained of color. Edward staggered back, grabbing the railing. Olivia felt her pulse spike so violently she thought she might faint. Every word Rachel had said echoed like a ghost. The genetic mutation comes from Edward's line. Olivia tried to speak, but her voice caught. "But Edward isn't." Edward raised a trembling hand. "Olivia, please, listen." Caleb took a step forward, voice breaking. "Are you saying you're his father?" Edward's eyes glistened. "Not in the way you think," the surgeon interrupted, urgency slicing through the tension. "We don't have time for this. Mr. Wright, we need your signature now." "Ins." Edward nodded slowly. "I'll sign." He turned toward the surgeon, but Olivia grabbed his wrist, her nails digging into his sleeve. "No, not until you tell me the truth." Edward hesitated. Caleb stepped closer, fury and heartbreak clashing in his voice. "If you knew something, if you kept something." Edward's composure finally cracked. "Liam is not biologically mine, but he carries a mutation common in my family. Because," he drew a shaking breath, "because I made sure he was protected from the moment you collapsed in that clinic." Olivia stared at him. "I don't understand." Edward's voice softened. "The day you almost died, doctors ran tests. One came back unclear, something related to your child's heart. They didn't know if it came from you or the father. I stepped in and ordered comparative samples. They matched a dormant mutation in my extended family." Caleb blinked. "Your family? That makes no sense." Edward nodded. "It does, if you know the full story." He looked at Olivia with a grief she had never seen. "My family paid for my brother to disappear decades ago. He struggled with substance abuse, legal issues. They erased him quietly, buried his records. But before he disappeared, he donated DNA to a research clinic for money." A sick realization hit Olivia. "The clinic where I went," Edward nodded gently. "His DNA ended up in the same system your tests went through. In 25, the truth hurtled into place heavy, dizzying. "So Liam's mutation came from a man neither of us ever knew," she whispered. "Yes," Edward said softly. "A ghost in the system. Not a father, not a lineage, just an unfortunate match." Caleb exhaled, anger shifting into stunned relief. "So, I'm still—" "Yes," Edward said. "You are his father." Olivia's knees buckled, and Caleb instinctively reached to steady her, but she pulled away, overwhelmed. The surgeon stepped in again. "We're out of time. Mr. Wright. Sign now." Caleb raised a hand. "Wait, if that mutation isn't directly inherited, why do you need him to sign?" The surgeon replied quickly. "Because Mr. Wright is Liam's legal guardian on record with the trust and medical documents. We need a legal father's consent, not a biological one." Olivia felt her chest tighten. Of course, legalities, papers, choices she made long ago to protect her son were now tied to the man whose secrets were unraveling all around her. Edward took the clipboard. "Olivia," he murmured, "I know you doubt me right now, but let me do this. Let me save him with the power you entrusted to me." Her voice cracked. "Just sign, please." Edward signed. The surgeon rushed back into the OR. Caleb stood frozen. Edward's shoulders collapsed. Olivia pressed her forehead against the cold wall, praying. And then, 30 agonizing minutes later, the surgeon reappeared breathless. "There's a problem," he said. "The surgery can't proceed without an additional authorization." Olivia's stomach dropped. "What authorization?" The surgeon turned to her, eyes heavy. "We need the biological father's consent as well. Without it, Liam may not survive the next hour." For a moment, time fractured. The hospital lights seemed too bright, the hallway too narrow, the world too small to contain the terror crashing over Olivia. She gripped the railing to stay upright as the surgeon's words echoed in her head. "We need the biological father's consent as well. Without it, Liam may not survive the next hour." Her eyes darted to Caleb, frozen, pale, trembling like a man staring at his own soul for the first time. His lips parted, but no sound came out. Olivia whispered, "Caleb, please." The word please shattered whatever was left of his hesitation. He stepped forward like a man awakening from an 8-year sleep. "What do I sign?" he asked, voice unsteady. The surgeon held out a second clipboard. "This authorizes the cardiac intervention and grants temporary medical authority. Without both signatures, we can't operate." Caleb reached for the pen, but Edward cut in sharply. "Hold on." Caleb whipped his head toward him, eyes blazing. "If you try to stop this—" "I'm not stopping anything," Edward said, breath shaking. "But you need to understand the legal consequences. The moment you sign that paper, the world will know. The media will bury Olivia. They'll bury Liam. They'll dig up every secret she fought to protect." Caleb's voice rose raw, cracked. "I don't care what happens to me." Edward's jaw tightened. "But she will suffer, and she's already suffered enough." Olivia's chest tightened. "Stop. This isn't about me. This isn't about reputations. Liam is dying." But Edward wasn't finished. He turned to Caleb, voice low and trembling. "You think this signature is just a formality? It's a declaration. Once your name appears on that form, Liam is legally tied to you. Every reporter, every investor, every enemy will descend. Olivia's life will change forever." "And whose fault is that?" Caleb shot back. "Mine or yours?" Olivia's voice cut through the air sharp, breaking. "I don't care about fallout. I care about my son surviving long enough to see tomorrow." Caleb looked at her, really looked at her, and something in him broke open completely. "I should have been there from the beginning," he whispered. "But I'm here now, and I will not let him die because I'm afraid." Edward stepped between them. "If you sign that paper without a plan, you'll trap Olivia in a storm she didn't choose." Caleb's voice dropped to a growl. "So what do you want? Let the boy die safe and anonymous." Edward flinched. Olivia's voice trembled. "Stop arguing. Caleb, sign it. Edward, let him." The surgeon cleared his throat urgently. "We're running out of time." Caleb gripped the pen, sweat beading on his forehead. But before the tip touched the paper, Edward said quietly, "There's something else you both need to know." Olivia froze. Caleb's hand tightened. Edward's voice was low, afraid, resigned. "If Liam survives this surgery, the trust fund terms will change. My board will demand a full paternity audit. They'll dig into his DNA. They'll uncover every piece of his medical history, including the clinic files I buried." Olivia's heart lurched. "Edward, why now?" He met her eyes with a grief that nearly broke her. "Because if Caleb signs, they'll assume he's the successor, and they'll try to remove Liam entirely." Caleb stiffened. "Remove him? From what?" "Crime," Edward swallowed hard. "From the inheritance, from the board, from the right name. My family will fight to cut him out, to protect the legacy, Olivia gasped. They would take away his future? They'll try, Edward whispered. And they won't care about collateral damage. Caleb stepped forward, fire blazing in his voice. Then let them try. I'll burn every corporate shield they hide behind. No one touches my son. For the first time, Edward didn't argue, because he finally believed it. Olivia's hands shook. Two men who once defined her pain now stood ready to protect her child. The world was shifting dangerously, irreversibly. She looked at the surgeon. Give him the paper. Caleb lifted the pen again. His voice was barely audible. For Liam, he pressed the pen to the form, and just as he began to sign, alarms erupted inside the OR. Nurses screamed. The surgeon spun toward the doors. His heart is crashing again. We may already be out of time. Oli. Chaos tore through the hallway like a violent wind. The OR alarms screamed. Nurses sprinted past with crash carts, and a voice over the intercom echoed through the hospital. Pediatric cardiac team to operating room 1 stat. Olivia froze. Her nails dug into her palms. She could see the OR doors thrashing as medical staff rushed in and out, their faces tight with urgency. Somewhere inside that room, her little boy was slipping away. No, she whispered. No, Liam. Stay with me. May. Caleb felt the world tilt under him. He'd spent his life leveraging pressure, controlling chaos, manipulating outcomes, but nothing had prepared him for watching his son's life drain behind a pair of sealed doors. His hands trembled so violently he nearly dropped the pen. Edward stepped forward, voice trembling. Caleb, sign it. Now. The surgeon reappeared, sweat on his brow. We need both signatures this instant. His heart rhythm is collapsing. Without immediate intervention, we could lose him within minutes. Caleb pressed the pen to paper. His hand stopped, not hesitating, breaking. His knees buckled as the truth finally hit him with the force of 8 years of cowardice and absence. I don't deserve to sign this, he cried, voice raw. I failed him before he was even born. Olivia spun toward him, gripping his shirt, her eyes burning with desperation. This isn't about what you deserve, this is about what Liam deserves. Sign it. Her scream snapped something inside him, a chain that had trapped him for years. Caleb Sterling finally became a father. He dragged the pen across the form, his signature shaking violently but unmistakably sealing itself into the boy's fate. The surgeon grabbed the clipboard and bolted. Caleb collapsed back against the wall, burying his face in his hands. Edward exhaled shakily, gripping the railing like he might shatter from relief and dread. Olivia stood frozen, tears spilling silently down her cheeks. She wasn't crying for the past anymore, or the men who hurt her. She was crying for the boy who carried all their choices in his small, fragile chest. A nurse burst out of the OR. They're starting the cardiac mapping, prepare yourselves. This will be a long night. Olivia closed her eyes. Please save him. Caleb stepped forward, voice breaking. Let me pray with you. She hesitated, then nodded. Caleb reached out slowly, gently taking her trembling hand with both of his. Edward stepped beside her, placing his palm on the small of her back, steady but respectful. For the first time, the three of them weren't enemies. They were a shattered family, facing the same nightmare. Minutes stretched into an hour, 1 hour stretched into 2. Olivia paced until her legs nearly gave out. Caleb stood silent, motionless, staring at the floor like he'd aged 10 years. Edward made call after call, cancelling meetings, securing privacy, warning his board to stay out of the hospital. Then, the OR doors opened. The surgeon walked out, exhaustion dragging his shoulders low. Olivia rushed to him. Is he alive? Bah, 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 bah. The surgeon nodded but didn't smile. He's stable for now. But there's something we didn't expect. Caleb's chest tightened. What do you mean? The surgeon looked between the three adults, choosing his words carefully. During the procedure, your son woke up. Olivia gasped. What? He wasn't supposed to. I know, the surgeon said, but anesthesia doesn't always hold in cardiac distress. He woke up for a few seconds. He was aware. Caleb staggered. What did he say? The surgeon took a breath. He was calling for someone. Olivia felt her world stop. For me? The surgeon shook his head slowly. No, he wasn't calling for his mother. Edward whispered. Was it me? No, the surgeon said softly. He turned toward Caleb. He kept calling for his dad. Caleb's breath shattered into a sob he couldn't contain. Olivia's hand flew to her mouth, tears spilling new and hot. Edward lowered his head, not defeated, but humbled by the boy's truth. Then the surgeon added one more sentence, one that changed everything. And he said something else, something you all need to hear. The surgeon's voice was still echoing in the hallway when Olivia pressed a trembling hand against her chest. Liam, her brave, gentle boy, had woken up mid-procedure. He should have been unconscious. He should have been unaware, but in those few seconds that life and death held him in their hands, her son had reached for the one truth he had never been told. He called for his dad, Caleb. Tears slid down Caleb's cheeks openly now, without shame, without restraint. His shoulders shook as he whispered, He wanted me. He wanted me even though I wasn't there. My son still chose me. Edward looked away, defeated not by Caleb, but by the quiet, devastating honesty of a child's heart. Tell us what he said, Olivia managed. The surgeon nodded. He kept repeating it over and over before the anesthesia pulled him back under. Caleb braced himself. The surgeon spoke softly. He said, Dad, don't leave me again. Caleb collapsed to his knees. Edward lowered himself onto a bench, his eyes glistening not with jealousy, but with acceptance. He deserves to know the truth, Edward whispered. And you deserve the chance to be the father he cried out for. Olivia's throat tightened. Edward. Edward. He raised a hand gently. I will always protect him, but I won't stand in the way of what his heart already knows. It was the first time Edward surrendered not from defeat, but from genuine love. Hours later, when Liam recovered enough to receive visitors, Olivia entered his room first. He lay weak but awake, small hands tucked beneath the blankets. His eyes lit up when he saw her. Mom, he whispered. Did I do something wrong? She kissed his forehead. No, sweetheart. You did everything right. Then, Liam's gaze drifted over her shoulder. Caleb appeared in the doorway, hesitant, unsure, terrified. Liam blinked. Are you my real dad? Caleb stepped forward, tears spilling freely. If you'll have me, yes, I am. Liam didn't hesitate. He held out his hand. Caleb took it with both of his, and Olivia, after 8 years of fear, heartbreak, loss, and survival, finally saw something she had never dared hope for. A father truly seeing his son. Edward entered next. He approached Liam with gentleness and placed a soft hand on his hair. You will always be family to me, he said, and I will always be here, no matter what changes. Liam nodded. I want that. And Olivia realized this was the life she had fought for. Not luxury, not power, peace, stability, truth. 3 days later, the press conference was held, not by Caleb, not by Edward, but by Olivia herself. She stood at the podium outside the hospital, hair pulled back, blazer crisp, voice steady. There have been rumors, she said, and tonight, I am ending them. My son's life is not a headline. His story is not a scandal. I will protect him above all else. Caleb stood behind her, not as a CEO but as a father. Edward stood beside her, not as a rival but as a protector. Reporters shouted questions. Who is the father? What happens to the right fortune? Is Caleb taking custody? Olivia raised a hand. My son has 2 men who love him, one who gave him life, one who saved it. But I am his mother, and I am choosing a future where he gets all the love he deserves, without secrets, without shame." The crowd fell silent. Then Olivia looked back at Caleb, and her voice softened. "And no one will ever abandon him again." Caleb bowed his head, humbled. Edward placed a hand on her shoulder, respectful, supportive. A family, reshaped by truth. Later that night, after the cameras were gone and Liam slept peacefully, Olivia stepped out onto the hospital balcony. The Manhattan skyline shimmered like a promise she could finally believe in. Caleb approached quietly. "Olivia, thank you for giving me a chance to be better." She looked at him not with the love she once had, but with something steadier. Respect, closure, possibility. Whether romance would bloom again was a question for another day. But for now, she offered him a gentle nod. "Just don't waste it." Behind them, a soft voice called through the doorway. "Mom, Dad." They turned. Liam was awake, smiling. Olivia felt her heart open, because for the first time in 8 years, her son wasn't calling into a void. He had a family who would answer. Well, that's it. Our story has finally come to a close, and if you are still here, listening until this very moment, then something in this journey must have touched your heart in a way that words alone cannot explain. Maybe it reminded you of your own battles, your own healing, or the people you've had to forgive just to breathe again. You know, the Stoics used to say, "The obstacle is the way." And tonight, we saw that so clearly. Pain didn't break Olivia, it shaped her. Hardship didn't destroy Liam, it revealed the love that was always meant for him, and responsibility finally transformed Caleb into the man he should have been from the beginning. Life isn't about avoiding struggle. It's about becoming someone stronger because of it. So, my dear friends, if this story stirred something inside you, hope, courage, forgiveness, then don't keep it to yourself. Share it, so someone else out there can feel less alone. Like it, if you felt even one honest emotion, and subscribe, so you'll be here with us for the next story that might just change someone's life. Because healing takes time, but we don't have to walk through it alone.